Hi everyone, welcome back to our YouTube channel. And so we were discussing about the chapter 2, theory of consumer behavior. So far we have discussed the utility part, the preferences of a consumer, how we can uh, look at the consumer's preferences using the indifference curve. And so today we will just consider the next part, that is the consumer's budget. Okay. The consumer budget is a constraint that any consumer faces. So let us consider this chapter 3. Hope you are able to see my screen. Right. So let us consider that a consumer has only a fixed amount of money to spend on two goods. Right. So generally, we are assuming that a consumer has a fixed income that he or she can spend on two goods. Because we have assumed two goods for the sake of simplicity. Now the income is also fixed. Then we are also given that the prices of goods are given in the market. The consumer will have to purchase goods and services provided whatever the prices are given in the market, and the consumer can afford those goods or bundles which cost his or her in less than equal to her income. Can afford to buy only those bundles which cost her less than or equal to her income. Now, this is the consumer's budget. Consumer's budget. So let's say it's a fixed amount of money. Consumer's budget is a fixed amount of money, right? Or we say income. Now, the prices of two goods and services are given. Is given to us. Now, let's say, now we will say that the price of one good, okay, for the price of first good, this is the price of good one, is denoted by P1. Price of good 2 is denoted by P2. Correct. Now, let's say the consumer pays the price of a good one as P1. If he purchases X1 quantities of good one, he will have to spend this much amount uh, to purchase good one, right? Similarly, if a consumer wants to purchase good two, he will have to pay a price of P2, right, for one quantity of goods. So if he purchases two quantities of goods, he will have to pay P2X2 amount. Now, since the consumer has, as we have mentioned, it is the consumer's budget. So we assume that the consumer has a fixed amount of money, and we denote that amount of money by M. Okay? So M is the income of the consumer, which is fixed. Let's say we have a monthly income. Okay. So in that case, P1X1 plus P2X2 is has to be equal to 1, because the amount he purchases, the amount he pays to purchase X1, and the amount he pays to purchase X2 must be less than equal to the total income he or she has. So this becomes our budget constraint. Okay. This becomes our budget constraint. Now, Why, like, why we have mentioned less than equal to? Because the consumer can afford the bundle. The consumer can afford the bundle. That is X1, X2 at prices with the bundle. All the bundles consist of X1, X2 with prices P1, P2. If P1, X1 plus P2, X2. So he can purchase all those bundles if the total amount does not exceed the income. That is the constraint he has. Constraint. It acts like a constraint. So he or she can afford all the bundles of goods X1, X2 if they cost less than equal to N. For example, we will take an example. So we have provided an example over here. So basically this becomes a budget constraint, right? Entire expression becomes the budget constraint. And the set of bundles available to the consumer is called the budget set. The budget set is the collection, right? The inequality is the budget constraint and the set of bundles available to the consumer is called the budget set. Now let's take an example. Let's say consumer has 20 rupees. Consumer has 20 rupees. Okay. Now, suppose both the goods are priced at rupees 5. Okay. So P1 is 5 and P2 is 5. Now, what combinations we can make with these prices? Like what quantities of X1 and X2 the consumer can purchase with these prices provided to us and the income that is given to us. So let's say, I'm just mentioning for here X1, X2. So if he takes one quantity of P1 or of X1, he can purchase, let's say, 2 quantities and also 2, right? So 2 quantities of X1, it would be like 4 into 5 plus 2 quantity of X2 into price of X2 equals to 20, right? So this is what he can purchase. Other combinations like he can purchase 4 quantities of X1 and 0 quantities of X2. So it would be like 4 into 5 plus 0 into 5, which also comes out 20. Next, you can also add 0, 4, 0 quantity of X1, 4 quantity of X2, 0 into 5 plus 4 into 5. Now, other possible combinations can be 1, 1, 1, 0 also. But that will not satisfy, that will not be 0, sorry. 1 into 5 plus 0 into 5. It is less than 20. This is not equal to 20, but yes, it will be 5. If we have not exhausted all the income, similarly, we can have other combinations like if we assume that the entire income is exhausted, then in that case, the combinations are, as we discussed, 2, 2, 4, 0, 0, 4, or 3, 1, 1, 3. Then we have other combinations like, I guess it's all, because other than that, the income will not be exhausted. Because the maximum quantity that the consumer can purchase of any of the goods is 4. So this is an example they have mentioned. So yes, there are other combinations also, like we can consider 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, and so on. All right. The consumer cannot afford to buy like 3, 5 because it cost more than 20, obviously. Can afford to buy 4, 5 because they cost more than 20 at the prevailing price. Right. Now, if we try to draw a budget set, budget line, budget line we draw in that capital form to come up like this. M1 M by P2. This is M by P1. P1 X1 plus P2 X2, which is equals to N. So this line denotes this equation. All right. And this entire set is budget set. Okay. Now here, how this comes up? This is also very interesting. So basically, this point comes up when comes up there y0. So in that case, if we put the value of y into this equation, or I would say x2. Sorry. If I consider is x1 and this is x2, and if x2 is 0, okay, then the equation becomes p1 x1 is equals to m. In that becomes, in that case, x1 becomes, solving this equation, m upon p. All right. Now, similarly, to this point here, we know that x2 is 0. This is x2 is 0. Similarly, we can consider that x1 is 0 here. This x1, the value of x1 is 0. In that case, our budget, if we put this value on the budget, on our budget set, we would get P2 x2 is equals to m. In that case, x2 becomes m by P2. All right. Now, I'll just create a duplicate slide. So this is what we get the budget line in graphical format. In graphical format. All right. Now, another basically m by p2, if I just write it down in words, m by p1 denotes if the consumer spends entire income on spends his or her entire income on P2 on sorry, let's say the m by p1 entire income on x1. X1, let's say it's a bananas. So it comes up as bananas. And m by p2, which knows if consumer spends entire income on ranges, let's say, or mangoes. So yes, so this is what we can derive from that equation. Now, if I mention the equation again, P1 x1 plus P2 x2 is equal to m. If I want to see the slope of the budget line, like if I want to know what is the slope, how do we calculate that slope? The slope is basically the delta y by delta x or delta x2 by delta x1. What is this value? Basically, in this case, So let's say if I want to write the equation as like this, x2 is equals to m minus p1 x1 divided by p2 divided by p2, right? So here, what does this expression or I would say equation means? Here that this budget line, is basically has the intercept as x2 as m by p2, which we have already figured out, and the slope as minus p1 by p2. Okay, so let's interpret this slope. The slope, which is minus p1 by p2, it denotes that if we increase the quantity of, because here minus p1 by p2 x1, so if we increase the quantity of x1 by 1 unit, like if the consumer consumes the quantity of x1 by like he additionally like consumes one more unit of x1, then he or she consumes increase the quantity of x1 by one more unit. He or she increase the quantity of x1 by one more unit. He or she has to forgo minus p1 by p2 unit of x2. Okay, this is what the slope is all about. The vertical intercept represents a bundle that the consumer can buy if she spends her entire income on mangoes. The slope of the budget is so quantity of bananas cost P1, therefore she will have to reduce her expenditure in mangoes by P1 amount if she wants one more quantity of banana. Even she could buy P1 by P2 quantities of mangoes, right? So basically they're telling us the consumer wants to have one more banana, she can do it by giving up some amount of other things. So how many mangoes she has to give up? See, it would depend on the price of two things. So quantity of banana cost P1. She should have to reduce her expenditure on mangoes by P1 amount. So if she wants one more quantity of banana, then even she would buy P2 even by P2 quantities of mangoes. Therefore, if the consumer wants to have an extra quantity of bananas, when she's spending all of her money, she will have to give up even by P2 quantities of mangoes. In other words, in the given market, condition, the consumer can substitute bananas for mangoes at the rate given upon P2. Right. So this is the rate of substitution basically. This I would say this rate is bar can forgo given by P2 units. This is basically the rate of substitution. Rate of substitution is given by P2. All right. Now, or I would just explain it in a more easy manner. So let's say if this is the equation x2 equals to x2 is equal to m minus p2 p1 by p2. Okay, x2 is equal to m2 by p2 x2 m by p2 minus p1 by p2 x1. Okay. n by p2 minus p1 by p2 x1. So that is what it is saying, that if consumer wants to, let's say, bananas and this mangoes, right? So if consumer wants to have one more unit of mango, one more unit of banana, right? He has to forego, because it is the next one, he has to forego even by 2 units of mangoes. Okay. So we can derive scope of the budget line mathematical terms as well. For example, m is equal to e1 x1 plus e2 x2, right? Now, if I need to find out the slope, slope is basically delta x2 by delta x1. Now, if I want to find out the change in the price, change in the quantity of x1 divided by and change in quantity of x1. Let's say I just mentioned, just for example, let's say I want to make a change over here, the p1 x1 plus delta x1, and I put two equations into x2 plus delta x2. So how many change I require in x1 and x2? So given the constraint is same, when I subtract these equations, subtract these equations, I get p1 delta x1 plus p2 delta x2 equal to 0. This will turn out as delta x2 by delta x1 as, because if I take out here p2 minus, it will turn out minus p1 by p2. Okay, because this term will go to the right hand side, it will turn out minus p1 delta x1. Delta x1 comes out in the left hand side, and p2 comes out to the right hand side, it will denominate. This is something we can derive it, right? Now, similarly, we can do the like changes in the budget side, right? Let's say my income, let's say my income and shift m dash, right? So this is our income m by p1 and by p2. So by p2 by p2 by p1. This is it by right. So now without that the x my income was initially my budget constant is p1 plus p2 is equal to m. Now it has shifted to m dash. Like m dash is bigger than x. I can, in that case, I can consume more quantities of x1 and x2 because my income has increased, right? So p1 x1 plus p2 x2 is equal to m dash. So this m dash would be greater than m. In that case, my budget line would be able to, let's say, earlier my income is 100, right? Now my income has increased to 150. So my even x1 plus p2, I can increase, like I can consume more quantities of, let's say, the price of 5. I can consume more quantities of even equivalent, correct? So that will take that to that. So if I will be able to inside people over here, that will be one. Now, again, F dash by people, then dash by people, right? Now, my income has shifted to my budget, has increased, my budget shifted the budget line towards the right. Why? Why so? Because the amount of M has increased. And that is stated in now let's say this is 150 divided by if the price is 5. Again 100 by 5 is equal to let's say I will price 30. Now I can consume 30 quantities of it given price. So when I consume more quantity. All right. Now this is I guess about the changes in the budget set. Similarly, we can have the if the income falls. If the income falls, even the prices of goods are even increasing only, it's the same. Then in that case, it's n by p2, n by p1, and n double dash is equal to, and in that case, the budget line shifts towards n double dash divided by p2, double dash. Oh, right. That's all for this session. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, stay tuned. And if you have any questions, any queries, any feedback, please share on the comments. Okay, bye-bye.